Everyone is born with creative genius, and it's up to us to recognize that within ourselves. I started writing poetry when I was a little girl, and I was so into it that I would make these like bound books with a picture and, whatever kind of calligraphy font I could find on our archaic computer. And I would take these books and I would share them. I would take them to school to try to get extra credit. My grandma was visiting one day and I brought one of my books to her that I had created. And she was reading through them. She had been a first grade teacher. And she was like, Melissa, when did you start doing this? And I just had told her that I'd been doing it for a while. And she kind of just smiled and laughed. And she said, well, my grandfather was a cowboy poet. And he published several books of his poetry and his creative writing. I'll have to dig those out and send them to you. So a couple weeks later, when she had gone back home, I got this package in the mail, and there were 3 bound books that were the writings of a man that I never knew. It was kind of this amazing connection of like, wow, maybe I'm doing this for a really specific reason. When I was 13, I got a guitar, but I didn't know that like you could be a songwriter. I knew that I loved writing these songs that, I was just kind of messing around with in my bedroom. And I was performing a lot, and kind of naturally I just started recording and performing those songs that I was writing. So fast forward 20 years, and I am now a professional songwriter in Nashville. I've been there for 17 years, writing commercially for other artists. At some point, I lost myself. I lost my original voice. A friend of mine, I was telling her just how burnt out I was, how I didn't really know if this thing that I had been doing forever was something that I wanted to keep pursuing. And she said, hey, I'm teaching this creative writing workshop. It was like the next day. Come over in the morning and I want you to do it. And I thought, you gotta be joking me. I just told you I'm completely burnt out writing and you want me to come write more. She's somebody that I really love and I really trust. So I was like, okay. So I woke up early the next morning. I drove 45 minutes out to her place, and I was immediately in this intimate group of people who had been riding together for several weeks. And she started taking us through these kind of really short exercises, which we're going to do some of those today. I immediately, instinctively, because I wasn't writing for work, I wasn't writing for song, I started writing from my original voice again. And in that day, I wrote stories, my own stories from memory and from imagination. And I hadn't done that for probably a decade. I hadn't wrote anything for myself. And then I got to have this experience of listening to all of these other people that were in the room, a stay-at-home mom, a barista, somebody that worked in administration for a financial company. And it just blew my mind open to the fact that we all are writers. And these other people that I was listening to their writing, they're not professional writers, but because they were writing from their original voice, they were writing from this place that was real, whether it was from memory, whether it was from imagination, their writing was impactful and powerful. And it was just like a fountain was turned on inside of me. And creatively, I was so refreshed and I was so hooked. And I wanted to know more about what is this process that you're doing? How did you stumble upon this? And it turns out there's this woman who has since passed away, but her name is Schneider. And she started an organization called Amherst's Writers and Artists. And I read every book that she'd ever wrote, and I felt like she was speaking directly to me. And then I went and I became certified to be a workshop leader for creative writing because I saw how much it impacted me as a writer, and I knew that the other people in my community needed this kind of an outlet. And I hope today that I can give you some of these tools so that when you're out in a beautiful place, you can document your experience, or you can take this time to look around you and feel the serenity of travel, getting in your RV, going somewhere that is unknown, and take that time to process maybe big things in your life, hard things in your life, the future, where you want to be going. And I believe that creative writing is an absolute vehicle for that. My primary form of writing is songwriting. Your primary form of writing might be text messages or emails or ad copy or lesson plans or medical journals. A writer is somebody who writes. So if you're sitting on the other side of the screen and you're like, lady, I'm not a writer, I have 3 guiding principles for you to help just get you in this mind frame of, yes, you are. You're doing this today. Number 1, writing belongs to all people. As an art form, if you're writing, you're a writer. If you're singing, you're a singer. If you're dancing, you're a dancer. So you have an original voice. You have a unique perspective. You are living this one life, and nobody else has that story. Number 2, intentionality. Get in your RV. Get somewhere that feels serene, that brings you peace, that is a grand adventure, and intentionally carve out time for yourself to connect to your original voice. That can be through documenting something that you did the day before, through doing some of that story work and going back into your past or projecting out into the future. It can be writing from memory, it can be writing from imagination, and getting somewhere that inspires you is so important. And number 3, you're doing this for yourself. I think so often we fall into this trick of starting to write and then getting in our heads and stopping that stream of consciousness flow because we're thinking about who would read this, what could this be monetized and turned into, how could I use this for work or for career, and then it becomes something that is lost on original voice. You're writing for yourself. Nobody ever has to read this, but at some point, if you wanted to craft it a little further, after you write it, after it's on the page, reapproach it, go back, turn it into a song, turn it into poetry, turn it into short story, or a chapter of the memoir of your life. That would be a great gift to your children, to family, to your friends, to the campfire at night. But that's not the intention. It's for you.